Hey everyone, welcome to the BioBreakthroughs podcast. I'm your host, Jared Taylor, welcoming David Stein, the CEO at Babson Diagnostics today. David, how are you?
Great. Thank you for having me today, Jared. I'm excited about our conversation.
I'm excited. Let's dive right in. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Have always been into healthcare. I had grandparents I cared a lot about who weren't always the healthiest. And growing up in New York in the late 80s, early 90s, you needed a strong advocate if you were dealing with healthcare issues. And I became that for my loved ones. Wanted to be a clinician, but couldn't separate from patients. So decided to focus on the intersection of healthcare, medtech, and innovation. And I've been lucky in my career. I joined a very fast growing diagnostics company. We got acquired by Siemens in 2006, stayed on, was given a lot of great opportunities, such as leading the global point of care business for Siemens, being part of the founding management team of Siemens Healthineers, and helping lead the IPO of that company. And during that tenure, with Eric Olson, the founder of Babson, incubating Babson inside of Siemens and then spinning it out.
And was that always like the thought process? Did you always know, like when you first started it, that you were going to spin it out? Because I've heard
No, I
kind
mean,
of
I
two
think,
different spin outs.
yeah. So, I mean, there's no secret. I was sitting in 2014, and I was constantly being asked by the venture capitalists of the world, should we invest in Theranos? And the labs of the world saying, what should we do? We're going to be, our customers are saying they want solutions like this. They want a true alternative to current practice in blood testing and broad blood testing, and we're worried about being disrupted. And Siemens is a leading company in diagnostics, one or two. And at that time, we were saying if our customers are being disrupted, we have to do something. So what's great is Eric Olson and I had done really cool projects in the previous 15 years. And we said, let's pull together a Tiger team and say, could we truly do broad testing, not just one or two acute tests, but truly broad testing from samples easily collected in decentralized location. That was our kind of initial goal. We pulled together a Tiger team. That Tiger team is now with Babson, and we started to say, what would you have to do? And we said, if you can reimagine the end-to-end ecosystem, if you could relook at it, everything from collection to sample, so to the processing of the sample, if you control that, what innovation can you do? Because largely diagnostics hadn't changed in 70 years prior since the invention of the vacutainer, for really good reason. You needed a high quality, large blood sample that you needed to acquire via phlebotomy and via venipuncture, and that the systems weren't optimized, high volume systems weren't optimized for sample volume. That wasn't a competitive access. But we said if you could control both axes, what could you really do? So, long story short, in 2014, 15 into 16, we figured out how could you run more tests, get more information from smaller volumes of blood without cheat steps, without diluting or other things that others had tried to do before. How could you make it that small volumes of blood and small tubes can go on high volume systems so you can maintain economies of scale and the cost structure? And then what could you do to make it easy for the pre-analytic steps to be accomplished? Because what you typically see when you get your blood collection collected is the phlebotomist doing the work of collecting the blood. There's a whole bunch of stuff that has to happen behind the scenes of mixing, centrifugation, refrigeration, labeling to get it ready for processing. So by the summer of 2016, we had figured out how to do the back end, which is get more information from smaller volumes of blood by shrinking down everything, not by quote cheat steps. We had figured out a whole bunch of stuff related to pre-analytics, which is how do you take the sample after you collect it and get it ready to go on a high volume system, but didn't have a great sample collection partner. And that's when, knock wood, as fate would have it, we started working with Becton Dickinson, the leader in blood collection. And it's been a great partnership since, working side by side. There's been numerous press releases about our strategic partnerships. And right now, we're at the precipice of really bringing a patient-friendly, customer-friendly disruption to diagnostics, where you no longer have to make a sacrifice of, because you want convenience and a different sample method, that you have to sacrifice quality or menu breadth or cost structure, that you now truly could do the most routine blood tests from samples easily collected at decentralized sites such as a retail pharmacy, where you can quickly walk in, just like you do with your vaccines and other things, quickly get sampled via a pharmacy tech or somebody in the pharmacy, and then get your results 24 to 48 hours later in a very user-friendly lab report, again, without making sacrifices when it comes to the most common menu breadth, not only tests, but the panels your clinician commonly orders you, when it comes to being reimbursable by your insurance, and when it comes to being truly clinical results. I think that's key. These are not directional results. These are clinical results so your clinician can take action with them and you can use them to guide your health journey.
Super interesting. And but again, congrats on all the success so far and getting it to this point. I know it's not easy.
Yes.
I would be curious to hear when things were getting going, and even maybe still today. What were some of the
Yeah.
challenges that existed, and also were any of those challenges also caused by like a Theranos that was in the space? I always want to. I don't get to ask companies
Sure. Sure. And
that question often. I want to ask you.
so Theranos proved that people want an alternative, right? They want an alternative to venipuncture, to having to go to patient service centers, to everything. Again, venipuncture will always be a key part of our system, but we think for routine screening and for other things, there's a better alternative, a better way, which is the name of our service. Um, I'll answer your question a little different. We started with what are the non-negotiables? The non-negotiables are one, that it's a clinical result, that it's a result that your clinician can trust, and that a company like Siemens or BD would put their name behind, right? And that's why they're on our board of directors and our partners. The second part is integrity and science first along the way. We've done over 40 IRB clinical studies. We're now approaching probably 750,000 tests as part of those studies, over 3,500 subjects, right? These are very intense studies in the quote field with real people, with real blood, doing comparisons between, such as doing comparisons between venipuncture and capillary samples, and always being rigorous when it comes to our quality. The other thing is we are highly technical diagnostics people and healthcare people who want to disrupt a market we love. We're not a technology company looking for a problem. We're actually diagnostics people that know there's 30 to 40% of people that are non-compliant. We know there's 56% of people that have difficult veins. And we know that we should be able to improve an experience when it comes to diagnostic blood testing that is probably the most important thing you can do to know your biology. 70% of clinical decisions are driven by diagnostic blood testing. 50% of your medical chart is your blood testing results. And this is something that we need to make better. And we believe we're on a precipice of doing that. So if you ask, what have we done differently? It's all that. Starting with science first and clinical results, plugging into the business of medicine, meaning the same CPT codes, the same panels your doctors are used to ordering, we provide. There is no necessary difference because you're ordering from Babson. That basically, in the end, it's a service that we want our loved ones to be tested on, a service that people prefer when it comes to the end-to-end service, and a service that we hope shifts some of that non-compliance so that we could really disrupt the healthcare system and drive everybody towards living healthier and longer lives.
I love the Better Way brand, by the way. Well, I think back. I know, you mentioned New York. So I think back to the old Seinfeld episodes where you have Jerry Stiller's like talking about Festivus, and he's like, "There has to be a better way,"
Right.
and I just want to see that scene with
Yeah.
your product immediately after. Right there is.
No,
Um,
you nailed it.
um, that's super. I love the approach, and part of I'll let you in on the secret. Part of the reason I do video with these is so I can see the excitement on your face when
Yeah.
you're explaining the problem you're solving and what you're building. So I can see anyone that's listening, go check out the video too, so you can see David's eyes light up when he's talking about Babson.
Let me just say, the key thing is one of the beauties of doing so many clinical studies, including so many clinical studies in retail pharmacies with real people, is you see the impact it'll have on people. Imagine you have a study participant come in, they experience the better way approach and the Babson ecosystem, and they say to you, every time I get my blood tested, 3 different people have to try it. Often they give up. I now have my dignity back, right? Or you're sitting in inner city Philadelphia in where you have somebody say, I have sickle cell, and every month I have to spend 40 minutes on a bus each way to get my CBC done. Wow, this will be game changing for my life. Or where you have people that have had cancer or IV drug use and they just don't have venous access anymore. And this gives them back the ability. When you experience the benefit you'll bring to people, you will work tirelessly to make it a reality, because that's the most powerful thing, right? I think, healthcare people are special. And once you experience um, improving somebody's life, even being a tiny part of it, right? Even being a tiny bit of seeing how somebody lights up because you made something that's really scary for them, something they really dread, and now you've given them a better solution. Um, it's a feeling that you can't explain, but it's a feeling that'll make you work tirelessly to realize that solution.
I would love if David, if you can talk a little bit. We talked about the early challenges.
Uh-huh.
I like if possible a level
Yeah.
the continued level of transparency. Kind of what are some of the obstacles that still exist though in this space that you're seeing? And you don't have to necessarily say how you're going to tackle them and give away any secrets here. But I'd be curious, like, are there still anything from a regular, in healthcare, right? There's a lot of tape. There's the regulatory. There's a couple different things. I would love
Yeah.
to hear in terms of this and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, I think we've taken the right approach, which is within the regulatory framework, um, with FDA on the areas that are governed under FDA, under CLIA on the areas that are governed under CLIA. Um, a few things. I mean, until now, there wasn't a way to get broad blood testing from small capillary samples. So our studies show the rigor and the clinical utility of it, and that we're going to provide clinical results. But some of that is just to show people that this is a reality. You are dealing with smaller volumes of blood, right? You're not collecting 30 milliliters. You're collecting a few hundred microliters. So the question is, how do you maximize the utility of that blood, right? And how do you make sure that you're doing that without sacrificing quality or menu breadth or the economics? Um, so there's a lot of there. What's been really key is there's been a lot of technical challenges, but over the last almost 10 years, we've steadily, with Babson and with our partners, steadily have worked to create really new science around capillary blood testing, new science around pre-analytics, new science around automation, which will culminate in a better way system. But we've really had to create along that end-to-end ecosystem. And that's one of our advantages is we were incubated inside of Siemens. We've partnered with BD. So on either side, our IP is it partners with those companies. And then we control the end-to-end ecosystem, right? We control how the end-to-end chain works. So we've been able to maximize every step along the way. Where others have to buy tubes from one vendor, buy centrifuges, manually label them, put them on systems, we've really now been able to pioneer a unique ecosystem. Again, that provides clinical results and allows us to maximize the utility of the blood we collect. So it starts with our BD partnership and between BD IP and RP, and in the future, having moving towards FDA clearance with a device that collects high quality blood, all the Babson IP around how do you maximize the utility of that blood and automate all the pre-analytics, and then the back end of how do you get more results from less blood sample. And then what we don't talk about as much, because we're trying to focus on technology, is we will have a really nice user interface, and a way that you're going to interface with not only deciding where to get your blood collected, but how to get your results. Because what we want you to be able to do is be smart when you get your results and understand what they mean, right? Understand when a result is in the quote green range, what does that mean? Or when it's something to watch, what does that mean? So that when you sit with your clinician, you could have a really educated conversation and be empowered to take action on your health.
And you already gave us a lot earlier in the conversation, David, in terms of we mentioned Theranos a little bit,
Mhm.
right? And I appreciate you. You don't run from like Theranos. You're creating, as you said, the better
Right.
way. Uh, Straight up, though, if you just had to give, a couple examples, Babson, Theranos, what Babson is doing? How is it different than what Theranos tried to do?
We control the end-to-end ecosystem. So Theranos had to take a sample and do whatever they did when it comes to stretching that sample to be able to run menu. That's one. Um, Basically, if you had to boil it down to it, is we are doing it with the rigor that a multinational medtech company would do, right? Under a compliant quality system, under a strict regulatory environment. And I think that's what's key is that we're not taking any cheat steps along the way, that we have the clinical studies to back it up and the data, and we will be transparent about our data, and that every step along the way we have innovated. So instead of trying to take a capillary sample and plug it into an ecosystem that's not meant for it, we have looked at every step along the way and said, what do we need to do to keep that clinical results um, when it comes to maximize clinical utility, but not cheating it, not doing things like dilutions and things like that. So um, the other part is if you look at the people that are in Babson, this is our life work, right? You'll hear me multiple times saying we want a product that our loved ones could be tested on, my kids could be tested on for really life or death decisions, and that's what we're putting out there. We are not driven by quickly getting to market and creating a tremendous buzz. We will create a tremendous buzz, but we'll create our buzz because of the benefits we will bring to people for diagnostics testing, the benefits we'll bring to healthcare, and the level of quality we'll bring to the market.
I love it, David. And I know our audience always wants me to ask this and only share what you can. What's the future hold? What's next?
Our next is marching um, to clearance. We hope to launch in the near future in our home market of Texas. And our hope is that one person who previously shied away from blood testing or wasn't compliant gets a blood test that really helps them drive their health. That there's other people that get a blood test that hopefully diagnoses early disease, and other people get blood work that shows that lifestyle changes they have made have really had an impact. In the end of the day, it's something as bringing to something as important as diagnostic blood testing a true new way of getting it done, a truly better way, so that we all people listening to it on the phone and us here live can benefit from it because it's something that really impacts everybody.
I'm so excited for you and the team, David, and hopefully we can have you come back on, maybe get on a panel. We can dig even deeper.
It'd be
Uh,
wonderful.
I know our audience would love it.
Sounds great.